Hello and welcome to the third video in this Dragon Age Inquisition hair modding tutorial. In this case in particular we are going to be checking the whole process when it comes to editing the mesh we extracted in the previous video. For this part in particular we are going to need a 3D editing a 3D editing program. In this case Autodesk 3ds Max is the one I'm going to be using, and we are going to have to take a few things into consideration before we jump into the whole editing. Though I want to apologize because this that I'm about to tell you is a bit important and I should have said it before, like, I don't know, perhaps in the intro would have been a good place. This whole process that I'm showing you, and the whole process that every hair modder in the Dragon Age Inquisition community uses, works on basis of replacing existing meshes. With this I mean is that we extract the original ponytail mesh in the previous video or any other mesh with the mod maker, because we can only work with those meshes. The only thing we can do is extract the mesh, modify it, make sure that the modification that we do doesn't alter the values of the mesh at all. Polygons, vertex, anything that the game has stored in information about that mesh has to be the exact same. We cannot delete strands, we cannot duplicate strands, we cannot use any sort of modification, like for example symmetry, that would alter anything of these counts that I told you. Because if you do so, it will happen to you the same thing that happened to me when I started doing this, is that you will do perhaps a beautiful mesh, a beautiful hairstyle for your Inquisitor, and then you're going to try to import it in the mod maker, and it's going to tell you that the parameters are not correct, or it doesn't have the same values. That means that everything that has been worked on, it's been completely wasted, because the game will never take a mesh that doesn't have the same counts as the one that it's holding in the unmodded game. So I want to really make emphasis in this because it's really important. Modify it to your heart's content, but take into account that there is a limitation to things that you can do. Okay? So based on that, you can be as creative as you want with the hairs that are already in game. Anyways, now that I've already gotten that off my chest, let's start with the whole process of importing a hair and the face and body into the program that we are going to use to edit the game. The mesh. In this case in particular, like I said before, 3ds Max. I'm using the version 2016, and when I work with this program, I usually use only one of the views that I'm given. When you start the program, you will have four views: the top, front, left, and perspective. If you want to settle on only one, you hover the mouse over the viewpoint you wish to use. You press Alt, you keep it pressed, and you press W. I'm sorry, there we go, I wasn't on the program. And now you are working only on the perspective view. Good. Another thing that I suggest you to do is go to the little plus sign that is to the top left, right beside perspective. Press configure viewpoint, and in perspective user view, press 2.0. What this will do is let you zoom in and out of the mesh with more ease. If there's any clipping or anything, I will show you later how to fix it, but this should be the settings that you have to work with 3ds Max. A few shortcuts that I would suggest you take into account. Z is to restore the viewpoint. That means if I go here and press C, it drags me back to the default viewport of perspective. If I have an object selected, and I will show you later how that works, you press C and it will center on the object. With the scrolling wheel of the mouse, you can do almost everything when it comes to modifying this view. If you press Alt and you press the scrolling wheel, it will allow you to rotate. If you only press the scrolling wheel without Alt, it will allow you to move it, the viewport. And if you scroll with the scrolling wheel, it will zoom in and out. Perfect. Okay, now let's get started with the whole importing our meshes into this viewport. We are going to go to Max, Import, and we're going to select one of the files we already exported in the previous video. Now, take into account that 3ds Max only allows for one object to be imported at the time. So first I'm going to go with my ponytail, and then I'm going to repeat the process for the head and the body. So I'm going to open, and here is where we have to be very careful with what we are going to import. This list shows that there are different files inside the HFPB. Each one of these files represents a version of the mesh with a different amount of faces. If you want to have a better explanation of this, take into account that the one that has more faces is the mesh that it's used in cutscenes, and it's always the mesh that the modder uses to create their new hair mode. We don't use the other ones because this one is the only one that will show both in cutscenes and in the game in general, and this is also the reason why meshes are only viewed when you have your settings in Ultra, because when you have your Dragon Age Inquisition settings in that option, it will show you the most complex of the meshes. In this case, this one. If you're in doubt and don't know which one of the whole list it is, it's always the one that finishes with LOD 0, and in the face count it has the most faces. Make sure when you're importing that all the information here is just like what you're seeing right now on the screen. Okay? Perfect. So I'm going to import, and now I have my hair. As you can see, and I mentioned this in the previous video, I only have the hair without the texture. And here is what I was going to tell you. Notice how the hair is disappearing from the viewpoint. Well, this is because I'm scrolling too far. If you happen to have this problem in particular, you have to modify this by selecting this option here that says viewport clipping. You press OK, and it's going to show you this little bar on the right side with arrows up and down. You push this up, you push this down, and it should solve my problem. See, I can go as close as I want without having any problem until I pass through the mesh. And that's how you can solve this. Okay, now I'm going to import the head and the body. It's the same way as I did with the hair. You select the file, you select only the LOD 0. Now here you can see that there are more than one LOD 0. That's because the face has the information for the eyes and for the eyelashes. You will see once I import it what I'm meaning. If you want, when it comes to the face and body, what you can do is select this option here that says import as single mesh. What this will do is fuse these three objects that would have appeared separately and import them all together. See, now I have the face, and here on my list of objects you have the hair and the face. One thing I want to point out here is that you have to be very careful with the naming of the object. Here the hair has this name in particular. Yes? Under no circumstances should you ever modify this, because if you do so, then when you import it in the mod maker, it will tell you that it was successful, but you won't see anything in the game because it had a different name and the game doesn't register it. So if your hair says MH and whatever it says, because it's different for each mesh, then you leave it there. You never change it because it will mess up with everything. It's not as serious as deleting a vertex or a polygon. Like, you can always come here, put the correct name, and that will solve the problem. But it's annoying, so be careful with that, okay? Now all that I'm missing is the body, so give me a moment that I will import it as well. If you're importing bodies, take into account that it also has two objects that end in .0. If you don't import both, you will have a weird body that doesn't have a feet. And there we go. So now, as you can see, I have face, body, hair. All is good. Perfect. If you have this menu here, it usually is on the other side of the window, but I put it here for reasons. You can freeze the human female head and human female body, and only the mesh will be available for editing. Very well. Oh, so far so good. So now what we're going to do is add a material to this, so we can see exactly how this hair would look like in game. To do that, you have to press the letter M. You have to right click on this menu, select materials, and select standard. It will create this material here. You hover over the small ball or circle, sorry, that's right beside diffuse color, and you press and drag, and it will show you a series of options to pick. Here you have to select bitmap. It will open to in this case this is 3ds Max library. We're not going to use it, we're going to use the texture that we already exported before. So here it is. As I remind you, I exported the hair straight thick diffuse. So open, and it will show you a small sphere. You can't see it larger if you double press on the box. And if you want to apply it to the hair, you're gonna have to go to the other side of the material here where you have this lap, and you're going to go to this circle here, press, drag, and hover over the hair. That should work. You're thinking nothing changed. Well, if you go back to the material and you select show shaded material in viewport, you can see the difference now. Okay, let me make it more obvious here. Scroll. There you go. You see? Now you can see a hair. I know it looks odd. I will tell you in a moment how to fix this. But don't worry, it's all part of the process. Very well. And I don't know why my CD perfect. There we go. Very well. Okay, so there are a few things that you have to modify in the bitmap. In order to do that, double click here, and it will show you the options for the for the hair, for this file that we extracted from the mod maker. The only things you have to modify are in the angle, the U, you have to turn it 180 and press rotate. Now, as you can see, the hair looks better. The strands have the proper order and right direction and everything. Yes? Good. And here's something else that I always suggest using when working with this program in particular, is to also work with transparencies. Because look, here you can see that there are white parts in the mesh. Here, 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 yes? Perfect. Like, now you may think that this isn't any sort of big deal, but what happens? If I work with this strand in particular, let me separate it from the rest of the mesh so you can see. Now, I'm working with this strand in particular, no? See how much white it has. If I work with it thinking that I'm working with the whole strand like this, I mean, I think all of this is hair and all of this will look like hair in the game, and then I look at exactly what I'm working with, only this will be seen. And the rest that you thought had more volume perhaps, or covered an area, or anything, will not show. That's why I think this part is very important. Okay, let me place it back. And there we go. Very well. Now, to work with the transparencies here, we still have to modify something from the bitmap. In the bitmap parameters, there's an option called mono channel output. You have it in RGB intensity, press it to alpha. You haven't seen any changes yet, don't worry, it will show once you hover over this green dot here on the bitmap and drag it to opacity. And ta-da! Now you know exactly what you are working with. Okay, in order to make sure that these videos don't get too long, I'm going to cut it here, and in the next video we're going to start working with mesh editing. Okay? Remember that if you have any questions or doubts, you can leave them in the comment sections of this video or send me a message through Tumblr. Okay, thank you for watching.